Welcome back. So we have talked from time to time. I think last time the budget came out, we were talking about issues as far as retirements were concerned. Were numbers going to be increased? Well, there is some good news, and I wasn't aware of this. The Canadian government, so federally, making a move this week to increase old age security for Canadians 75 and older by 10%. It's the first
That's
permanent
major.
increase since 1973.
Wow.
Do the quick math on that. So 50 years for something like this to actually finally come about. Anthony Quinn is the Chief Community and Benefits Officer for the Canadian Association of Retired Persons. He's on the line to discuss this and explain exactly how this is going to work and who it's going to help and who it's not going to help. Because, Mr. Quinn, I understand that's part of the concern here, right?
It is. Thanks very much for having me this afternoon.
Yeah. So first of all, when you see, this seems pretty substantial, a 10% hike, how is it going to work?
So there have been hikes going on a regular basis, and they're increased quarterly based on inflation. So we've had quarterly increases in the old age security payments to seniors at age 65 until death, and they go up with inflation. So you might see increases of 1 or 2%. But in the most recent increase, it's gone up 6.4% because of the CPI and inflation index. But CARP's real concern is that they've now split this increase into two cohorts of seniors. We have the traditional 65 plus who are getting what they were getting before, and now the 75 and older folks, they're going to get the increase of about $800 per year.
And what is the justification for this? Is it just a numbers game? There are fewer 75 and older?
Well, they are fewer, and they will be receiving it for a shorter period of time. So that's likely the math on the minds of the Minister of Finance. But CARP really does see a dangerous precedent in separating out what it means to be a senior and who's entitled to receive their old age security benefits.
Well,
in total, the amount is under $20,000 if you have old age security, which is close to $9,000, and you qualify for the guaranteed income supplement, which is intended to keep seniors out of poverty. But that brings you up to only about $20,000 if you have no other income.
Okay, what is it you would want to see happen? I mean, as far as making this more equitable across the board?
Well, a couple of things we're asking for is for the indexation of old age security to really reflect how seniors spend their money and where they are seeing the increases. They see it differently than the general population, and the cost of groceries and the cost of housing and the cost of medications and health care that aren't necessarily reflected properly in the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So we want seniors to be reflected better when indexing old age security dollars. And secondly, seniors are seniors. The government tells us that younger seniors should now be looking forward to this increase as they're getting older. And that's where we see the frustration from seniors who are under age 75 who need that increase to match inflation.
And not that you would necessarily know, but I mean, what's the government's position here in not making this available to people 70 and over as opposed to 75?
I can't tell you. Prime Minister Trudeau was announcing this on the campaign trail in 2019. It took many years for him to bring it forward, but we've been, along with the National Federal Retirees Association and FEDAC in Quebec, calling on the government to ensure they don't split the cohort into two. They have, and we're calling for everyone over age 65 to receive these necessary increases.
Okay. By the way, if that was to happen, do you have a global figure on how much more that would cost?
I don't have the number, but we're looking at about 6 million Canadians over age 65 right now who are eligible. And then there are different thresholds of income where if you have a higher income as a senior, you're getting less of the old age security. So right now we're talking about the maximum amounts. And so for that, and the projection for the old age security budget is intended to grow by about $38 billion between 2011 and 2030 to $108 billion. So we're over $100 billion by the time we hit the end of this decade,
right?
Because of the increase in the number of people in Canada as the baby boomers are going through. The youngest baby boomer right now is about 58 years old. And they'll be coming into eligibility for old age security in the next few years.
I find it interesting that there's almost like a reverse discrimination going on here, like that younger seniors are somehow being left out of this. What's that response been? Because in terms of, I'm just thinking their long-term comfort and stress levels are not going to be helped very much by this.
Definitely, Natasha. The wait for 10 years to receive that increase, it's not a carrot that seniors are willing to wait for. There really is a frustration amongst the younger seniors, as the Prime Minister and the Minister of Seniors are calling them. When the $500 came during COVID, the one-time payment of $500, that was to everyone over age 65, and it was welcome. But it wasn't based on income, so everyone who was over age 65, if they still had six-figure income coming through their investments or through their employment, they were still entitled to that $500. So we think it really should be aimed at pulling the poorest seniors out of poverty, ensuring that they're living dignified lifestyles.
So what happens next then to try and make that happen? I mean, this is a done deal, is it not, Anthony?
Well, it's in the budget now, and it's going to start this week. So if you're over 75, you'll be looking to get another $800 this year, and we're glad that is there. We'll continue our advocacy along with the other seniors groups right across the country in hoping that the government of Canada will understand that they are, as you said, discriminating against the younger seniors who are experiencing the exact same levels of inflation and the exact same concerns about poverty and outliving their money as their older cohort.
You know, I wonder if any of this, and maybe this is unfair because, I mean, these plans have been in place for a few years. You mentioned they campaigned on this back in 2019. So we found out that during the pandemic, you had a lot of Canadians, younger workers, who were simply deciding either not to work or not to go back to their old jobs. And we kept hearing from employers at the time saying, hey, if you retired at 65, we don't consider you old. Come back to work. We need you. We want you. And it seems to me that's still the case. They're certainly able to work, right? Even if they retired at 65, given what's going on now, because there's so many jobs to be filled. Do you think that had anything to do with this? The government realizing these people can still be working?
Well, there's definitely a resource in Canada of older workers, and many are working because they want to stay engaged, and many are still working because they have to, because they don't have the income. But for every dollar they earn on the employment, working in employment, that's money they lose off of their old age security potentially by staying in the workforce. So we want to incentivize older workers. It's good for our economy. It's good for their physical and mental health. But we also want to ensure that those who are unable to work as they're aging are protected from what we're seeing at the grocery store and the gas station these days.
Yeah, I just wonder if those two groups are mutually exclusive or not. I mean, if you're working at age 65, 68, whatever it happens to be, and making a reasonable salary, you know, you're talking about losing that money because you're not qualified till you get to 75. Maybe that money should be made up to people who really need it, while the ones who are working at that age don't even need it at that point. Is that not a fair assumption?
Well, if you planned your retirement or you're financing your old age from, let's say you start thinking about it in your 40s and you start really getting closer in your 50s, and you say, well, I'm expecting this amount of old age security, and you've planned to live another 20 or 30 years based on that amount, it's difficult for the government to say, we're not going to pay you that for 10 more years. Mm-hmm. So that 65-year-old cohort now is not experiencing the same 10% increase that their neighbors in the condo or the apartment building they're living in are getting. And we think that's not fair.
Yeah, I completely get that. I just wonder, you know, what percentage of that cohort now are thinking, you know what, I wouldn't mind going back to work. Not because they have to necessarily, but because, hey, you know what?
But that shouldn't come into play.
No, you're right. Maybe it shouldn't.
That shouldn't factor in here because that's an optional situation for some people, but it doesn't apply to everyone across the board. But
if you were working at that age and making that money, you could opt out of getting this increase or any money from the government, could you not?
Well, you're not opting out of it, but the more you earn, the less eligibility you have for the highest old age security payments. And you're necessarily losing money from old age security as you're increasing your money in the workforce.
Right, and you don't make it up when you're getting older and finally decide to cash in.
You don't make it up. No, that's lost money on the annual payment. And we know that our members, CARP members, and seniors in general, as things are increasing in price, they're not able just to work a few more hours, work a little harder, put in some overtime, or look for new work. This is something that they are on fixed incomes, and this is when it really comes that the chickens come home to roost. when they can't afford the things on the shelves, and the cost of medication and gasoline and
understood.
shelter increases.
We'll see how this one plan, and I guess obviously the government is aware of this, and it's being discussed all the time. You're making the case as well, so we'll see. Hopefully something will change, because it does seem a bit unfair. Mr. Quinn, I thank you so much. Appreciate your time this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, Anthony Quinn from the chief, of Community and Benefits Officer. They're called CARP, Canadian Association of Retired Persons, and it's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it?
I mean, it's great news for those over 75.
Sure.
But it does seem, imagine if you're 74 and you're on a very tight budget, or you're 60, like he's saying, waiting 10 years for you've just turned 65.
Or as he said, you planned for it, right? Figuring that this is what it was going to be, and then you find out, no, it's not.
Not
So
for you.
that's not fair either.